Good morning, folks. Today we have an episode from the lab. It's about sample labeling. And before you're asking, yes, we are supposed to wear face masks in the lab. I came in super early, so I'm not impacting anyone. But we'll keep it short and sweet today. So I've lined up a few things that you might want to label on the time you're in the lab. Let's start with the paper bags. They are for dry weight. What I would want to put on those is my name, day or at least month, and sample number. And then I will put the experiment as well. For these little tinfoil bags that I've prepared, I'll put plant material in there to immediately freeze in liquid nitrogen. So I'll have to fold the edges a bit, so make sure that you label them somewhere where it's already folded and you can read it afterwards, because there's no use if you fold it and then half of your label is gone, right? For the small vials, you will probably either store them in a box like this or in a bag like this. So you will have them grouped for experiments. But these boxes can open, the bags can open, there's sometimes a mess in freezers. And if you lose one or two of these vials from one of the bags, you would like to be able to recover them. So you would like to be able to find them and determine that this sample is of exactly that experiment. Because if you don't know, if there are some of these vials kicking around in the freezer that don't have an experiment on them, they're going to be thrown out, because nobody knows anymore what sample 24 was supposed to be. Like, which experiment is that? So that's lost. So if you do not label your samples properly, you might as well not bother taking them in the first place, because chances that they will be thrown out or they will be lost are so high, it's just not worth it. So put the time in, label them properly so that you can find them and other people can identify them later on as well. When labeling your vials, it's incredibly important that you put this little line under the number, because it's not only important for number 6 and number 9, where it's relatively obvious that if I turn it around I might not be able to understand, to determine if it's a 6 or a 9. So if I put that line on the bottom, I would always be able to know where the bottom of the vial is. Because if you put them in here and then label them one after the other, it happens so quickly that you just have one vial that's turned the other way around, and you might not notice as you label them. So always put the line underneath it so you know. And it's not only important for like 6 and 9, it's also for later numbers. You've got like the 16, for example. If you turn it around, you wouldn't know if it's a 91 or a 16. So you've got your label on the top, but you also want to label them on the side, because if you put these in liquid nitrogen, you would want to punch a little hole in all the lids, because everything in there gets super cold in liquid nitrogen. And as you take them out and put them back into the freezer, -80 or -20, the air in here will warm up a little bit, because even -80 is warmer than liquid nitrogen. And air that warms up expands, and that sometimes makes the lids pop. And they don't pop like this, they pop completely. So you will, where is that? You will lose the lid. And then you don't know, if that happens with like 2 or 3 samples, you don't know which sample is in here anymore because the lid's gone, right? That's why you also want to put it on the side here. When you collected your samples in these little vials, or also if you have them in your tinfoil bags, you will want to group them so that they are all kept together somewhere in the freezer. Same goes for, obviously, for dry samples that you want to store. You want to keep them together somewhere. So you would keep them in a bag or in a box, and both of them you would want to label properly. And this is the stuff that you need to label in a way that people can identify it even if you're not in the lab anymore. If somebody needs to find samples for me now, they can go through it and figure out, okay, these are, if I tell them, oh, I need the root samples of day 1, right, and then they have the experiment, they have the day, they've got the label that it's roots, because if I have them in these bags, you don't know what kind of tissue is in there, right? So if you don't want people to start opening up bags and dropping part of the sample somewhere or mixing samples up because the bags were opened, write on there what's in there. That's the most important thing. Always bear in mind, if your samples are not properly labeled, they might be thrown away. That's the risk. And you might not be able to identify them either, right? So keep that in mind. For these boxes, they are usually kept in rack storage. So if you label them from the top or from the side, actually depends on how your lab stores them. We store them in little racks, so you would see the sides. And for me to find my own samples a bit easier, I decided I'm going to use this yellow isolation tape. And then I know, and everybody else knows what's in there without opening the box. And if they don't need to open the box, samples won't fly around as much. The lab's become quite busy, so I had to go outside to say my goodbye. Yeah, I hope again this was helpful for those people that have not worked a lot in the lab before, or did not know how to actually label their samples properly. And I hope that leads to a little bit less confusion in freezers and drawers in labs in the future. I'll see you again tomorrow, and until then, keep smiling.